Ciao Blender artists! This is the final episode of the beginner-friendly tutorial. We have our 3D chair, we have smoothed it, we have textured it, and today we will render. We can close the Spectre window and we can go back into the outliner. We can include the elements like this white floor. We can make this floor, we scale it up a lot more because we can actually fake an infinite white background. There are more advanced techniques to do that, but for a beginner-friendly tutorial, I think that this can be a good way to. Now we are still in a viewer mode, the material preview that doesn't really show you the full potential. So this is not a render. It's quite decent, but it's definitely not a good render. So one of the things that I would like to do is also changing the color of the floor. So I can add again the black material. I can actually change it into the inspector window of the material in here. I simply have to duplicate this. I can call this white floor, not floor, and I can change the base color into white. And the other thing that I can do is making maybe even less reflective. So I will increase the roughness probably to 0.6. You will not really notice any difference in here. And even if I go into render view, you will see that the render is not something particularly detailed. This is due to the fact that we are using Eevee. Eevee is the render engine used by Blender by default. Is a real-time render engine. It means that it works like the render engines of the video games. It tries to render as fast as possible, but doing so it has to remove parts of the information. So it means that it tries to fake everything in order to be fast. So to make a render more detailed, you need to activate certain part of the render, and to do so you have to go into the render properties. So the first thing that we want to add is a little bit of shadowing. So the place where the chair lies doesn't have shadows. If you add an ambient occlusion, you will notice that more shadows will appear even here. Yeah, this material doesn't really add a lot of shadows, but for the time being I think that's fine for us. The other thing that can help with the render is the bloom. What the bloom does, it takes the lights and it makes them more bright. So in this case it will just act on these areas that reflects, but it is always helpful to make a model a bit more realistic. Also you will see that there is this kind of halo around the model that's really nice in very bright areas. The other thing that I think that we need to add is screen space reflections, because this reflects a lot of what's around, and at the moment it's just a fake reflection. In this case, as you can see, the model reflects a lot, and you can also notice that this area that is more rough reflects more than less than this one. The other thing that I would like to add is a slightly more high bit depth shadow. And yes, I forgot, I would deactivate the half rest trace. The half rest trace basically halves the resolution of the reflections. We don't have any transparent elements, so I wouldn't add the refraction. I think that we are okay, so we can go back into the solid view. We can deactivate the X-ray and we can start adding cameras. Seeing that we used an HDR image to lit these, I wouldn't add any light, but I would create a new collection. I can call this cameras. And seeing that the camera is an object, I can press Shift A and I add a camera. The camera is kind of hidden under the floor, so we can simply grab it, G, Z, and move it up. Now, when you add a camera, you will see that this triangle is filled with orange. When you add a second camera, you will see that this triangle, I can do it now, add camera, is empty. Why? Because this is the active camera and this is the second camera. If you press 0, you enter into the active camera as if you move across the different views of your 3D view. So if we press 0, of course at the moment the camera doesn't focus on anything. You can simply press G and ZZ to move backward. You need to have the camera selected, of course. G, ZZ. You can select your camera, press G, ZZ to move backward, and then G to position your camera. Another way is going into the View tab and press Camera to View. In this way, the camera will move with your view. We can place our camera here. Now I exit the camera to view and I can work with this camera. In order to enter a second camera, you can press Ctrl 0 and this becomes the active camera. We can do camera to view again and we can position this camera into a different view. You simply move with this camera as if you would move into the 3D space. Then you can exit the camera to view. Probably I am orthographic now, yes. I want this camera to be my main camera, so Ctrl 0, I enter this camera. I can go a little bit closer, so GZZ, because of course I need to move across the local axis of my camera. If I go into render mode, I can see my model. You can also toggle the overlays for your scene. Basically, when you toggle the overlays, you are able to see the axis and the pivot point, and when you toggle these, you simply hit them. So for now we are okay. The last thing that we need to do is rendering. So we go into the output properties, and the first thing you will see that the resolution by default is HD, so 1920 by 1080. You can change them, so you can do 1920 by 1920, and you will see that the camera will now have a squared space. But we can go back to the normal one. We will not speak about the start frame, end frame, because this is for animation, and for now we will stay just on still images. We need to set up an output because the output at the moment is a temporal folder. To be honest, for the animations that are to be honest, for the still images you don't even have to set up, because we are gonna save the image directly on the inspector. What's important for now is the file format. In this case, I'm gonna save in JPEG. The quality can be 100%. You need to set up as if it's black and white or RGB. By default it's RGB and we need to keep it. Overwrite basically overwrites a file with the same name in the same folder, and placeholders creates a placeholder when you render it, mainly used for animations. So everything is set up. You will notice that so everything is set up, and we just need to go into render image, and the render engine will think a little bit and will provide us with our image. We can actually go into image, save on the desktop, and we can give a name like chair. You can save as a render. I usually deactivate these. I don't want to save as a copy, and I don't want to keep the relative path, so I don't want the image to remain into Blender. I just want to save external. So I do save image. I can close this window, and that's it. Now all you have to do is opening your image and check it. As you can see, when you render, you see a lot more details into reflections, and even on the floor, as you can see, there are this kind of nice reflections. I hope you liked these tutorials and you found useful. I created them to help new artists to start from the very basic, from scratch, and to build confidence. As usual, I invite you to subscribe to my channel and to write me advices and also request on new tutorials. This series has been created as a result of some questions I got from previous tutorials. I'm waiting you next week with another amazing tutorial, and for now I just say you ciao!